Hello and welcome to Tech Deals. 500 watt 80 plus bronze power supply, $29 just through the end of March. There's a deal going on right now. In this video, I'm going to take this out of the box and show it to you. But before that, link down in the description below to Amazon. This is $45 up front with a $15 mail-in rebate, so an effective price of $30 for an 80 plus bronze 500 watt power supply. This will power just about any single graphics card on the market with the exception of the very top end cards, but a GTX 1070 or maybe perhaps 1080 or an RX Vega 56 or RX 580 will do just fine with this. Either a new build, an upgrade of an older system, or an OEM pre-built. Do you have an Acer Aspire or perhaps a Dell Optiplex or Dell Vostro pre-built computer, Lenovo or something similar? If you need a power supply to run a graphics card, maybe it comes with an old basic unit that's not working right or won't handle a new card, then this should be on your short list. This will fit into standard machines. It's a standard ATX size. I'm going to show it to you here in a minute, but if you're looking for a deal towards the end of March 2018, this is a pretty good one. Now, there are other power supplies on the market in this power range and in this feature range, and I'll talk about those a little bit later in the video, but I genuinely can say that these are pretty good. Now, I've used different versions of this in previous builds. In fact, this will be my fourth Cooler Master power supply that I have used. I use two of them in my main systems that I use on a regular basis, so I'm very comfortable with their quality. This is not a super high-end unit with all the fancy features, so don't stick it on an i7-8700K, don't stick it on a 1080 Ti, but of course it's a $29 power supply, that would be crazy. But anything up to about a Ryzen 5 1600, maybe a 1600X, an i5-8600K with a modest overclock with a mid-range graphics card, 2 thumbs up all day long. Now, before I take this out of the box, I'll just address the fact that inevitably in these kinds of videos, somebody always says, but what about EVGA? What about Corsair? What about name 5 other companies? In general, within a given price bracket, within a given feature bracket, there's not a huge difference between the power supplies. This Corsair CX550M, for example, is 500 watts bigger, and the EVGA 450 here is 50 watts lower. They're minor numbers, all things considered. Now, the Corsair here is semi-modular, but it also costs more. The EVGA is not lower powered, and it costs less. It's a few dollars less. Is there a huge difference between these units? No. If you have a brand preference, by all means, I would recommend all 3 of these power supplies on the desk. They're all good units from good companies. They're all 80 plus bronze. They're all going to last you for many, many years. They all have similar warranties. This has a 3-year warranty, for example. So if you're looking for something like this and maybe you just prefer a different brand, that's fine. But as I said, I've used Cooler Master in multiple machines and have no problem recommending it. With the gist of the deal out of the way, why don't we take this out of the box and show you how nice it looks. Now, inside here, it's a fairly basic package. There's some documentation and paperwork. Oh, how you put it in the computer. You screw it in. It's pretty simple. Then you've got some additional cables here. This is the standard wall power cable. Now, this is not a modular power supply. So when I take it out of the box, all of the cables come with it. In the package, we do have our power supply screws. This lets you screw it into the case. And then this simply comes out, and we have a power supply. You know, ironically, I do have a Threadripper on the desk. I finally got an X399 board, so that build is finally coming. I've been waiting for that for a while. Yeah, don't use this power supply for that. It wouldn't work at all. It's just there because I needed something to put on the desk. You can see here the side of the power supply is very discreet. It's got some white print, and then it's just got black. It's not gaudy. It's not flashy. It's not going to contrast with the rest of your system. Although I'm willing to bet a lot of computers this gets put into, you'd never see it anyway. Stick it into one of those OEM pre-builts, you're certainly never going to see it. Now, the other side contains all the legal stuff that you need to know, the various wattages and everything else. This, by the way, will provide 460 watts of power on the 12-volt rail. That's important because that's where all the power is. That's your graphics card and CPU and all the other important stuff. So that provides the power where it's needed, why it can handle those graphics cards just fine. It has 2 6+2 PCI Express power connectors. So even if you have a graphics card that needs 2 8-pin connectors, this will handle it just fine. 2 6-pin, just fine. 1 8 or 1 6, not a problem, or 1 of each. It also has 6 SATA connectors for SSDs or hard drives. It has several Molex connectors. It's all that you need in a 500 watt power supply. Turning it around to the back, you have your power connector here and a physical on and off switch, which is nice, which a lot of OEM and cheap budget power supplies don't come with. No voltage selector, it's automatic. 100 all the way to 240 volts, works anywhere in the world, just replace the power cable, does just fine. Now, one nice feature is that it does have a 120 millimeter fan on the bottom. Some cheap power supplies only have a 90 millimeter or even an 80 millimeter fan. Some of them put the fan on the back, which makes it louder. That's a nice feature because it makes it quieter. Yes, super high-end power supplies are now coming with 140 millimeter fans, but hey, it's a $29 power supply. I will call your attention to something I don't like: ketchup and mustard colored cables. Again, if you're sticking this in an OEM machine, it doesn't really matter. But if you look really closely, there's yellow on there and there's red and all sorts of colors in here. A lot of modern power supplies, a step or two up from this, the 650 watt Master Watt that I covered recently, those are black end to end with no ketchup and mustard color, but those cost a few dollars more. So do you care? It does have the black sleeving, but it does have the colored cables if you care about such things. And there's no modularity. Everything here is physically attached. Now, inevitably beneath one of these videos, besides the "but what about brands," somebody's going to say, "but what about price? Shouldn't you spend $10 or $20 more for a power supply?" Yes and no. It depends upon what you're building, and I've covered this in detail in other videos, so I'm not going to do it here. Consider this. If you currently have an old or failing power supply, if you have something that is not enough wattage, doesn't have the right connectors, if you've got a mid-level graphics card, this is really all that you need. Would I put a 1080 Ti on this? No, but believe it or not, it would run one. It really would. The actual power consumption of an i7 8700K and a 1080 Ti peaks in the 350 to 400 watt range for the total wall load, and that's after accounting for the power efficiency loss of the power supply. 80 plus bronze runs at about 85% efficient in the mid bands. It's a little bit less on the top and the bottom end, bottom 20%, top 20%. This would run that. I wouldn't do it. That's ridiculous. If you're spending that much money, you should spend more. But the fact that it will run that should tell you that it absolutely is plenty for anything lower than that. Maybe you have a 3 or 6 gig GTX 1060 or a 4 and 8 gig RX 580. Maybe you have a Ryzen 5 1600 or an i5 8400. Anything over this is honestly overkill. I see posts all the time from people saying, "Oh, you need a 750 watt gold. That's the only thing. You're crazy if you get less." No, you're crazy if you buy that for such a machine. You're just wasting money. It doesn't do anything. It's 2 to 4% more power efficient, which is nice, but at 3 times the price for the power supply, that takes a long time to pay back a 2 to 4% power efficiency increase. If the power supply works and provides rated power, which a rated unit such as this from a name brand manufacturer does, it's really enough. Don't overspend and buy more power supply than you need, unless you're building a $1,500+ machine, in which case, yes, I would buy more than this. But for anything up to about $1,000 or so, it'll do the job just fine. Like this video if you like it, share it with your friends if you loved it. Remember to subscribe to my channel with the big huge red button directly below. Questions and comments in the comment section. And as always, links in the video description. Link to this deal down there just through the end of March is the mail-in rebate. Go check it out, because if you're looking for a deal, then this should definitely be on your short list. After March is over, if the price has gone up, well, then maybe it is, and maybe one of the other power supplies would be a better deal. But at least right now, consider it. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video.